Thank you again for being here today. My name is Andrew Strauss. I'm one of the founders of Navengage, now owned by Pathfind. Navengage was a product that was developed originally after the pandemic at Penn State. Really here to talk to you today about making it mobile and specifically everyone that is looking at this from the Anthology Engage perspective and what you can do with the Navengage app by making it mobile. A majority of what we're going to be going through today is some of our subject matter expertise and our early adopters through the Navengage program. That includes Adrian Harris from Roger Williams University, the Associate Director of Student Programs, Leadership, and Orientation. Cynthia Lambert from Cal Poly, the Director of Educational Communications and Student Affairs. Mark Manning, the Assistant Director of Student Involvement, and Dr. M.K. Tyler, the Director of Student Leadership and Involvement. We're going to give a little bit of a background before we jump into our panel, just to talk about the relationship between Anthology and Navengage. So we, again, built this with a comprehensive mobile approach. And what that really means is, in addition to student affairs, we were really looking at the whole life cycle of the student and how that relates to academic affairs as well. What we really focused on is the 99% of students that are not the student org leaders. So how can we especially help those students in discovery mode, that may be new students, transfer students, really to find their place. And that's where a lot of the social features came into the app that you'll notice are in addition to Anthology Engage when it comes to things like following organizations in addition to joining them, as well as having the opportunity for group chats and a social feed, which we're going to see here in a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about how that works. So conceptually, as the students signing up, they're going to have some of these prompts where they can fill out things like interest. So obviously, with the election year, there might be more or less students who are interested in something like civic engagement. And you can see that year from year when the first year students log on to the app. Orientation is another thing that our early adopters have started to implement a little bit more on their campuses. So I also encourage you to ask them about that today. And as you can probably see, we have a chat. I encourage you to use that. We'll also have a poll coming up here today, but a really great opportunity to start asking some of those questions. And again, we'll open that up for more of a chat toward the ends of this as well. So as the student may select some of these interests, it could be music, performing arts. That student can then curate a feed. So they'll have a community feed, which is really for them to discover those things. But then they have a My Network feed, which is a great opportunity for them to follow student leaders as well as clubs and organizations that might help them to get connected. And at the end of the day, we want more students to join those organizations. That following feature can give them a really great opportunity of that in between that they may have that interest, but they haven't actually joined yet. And this is all powered by Anthology Engage. So that is still the source of truth. What we're really doing with the comprehensive mobile app is providing your students an opportunity to see some of those opportunities directly in the app, to connect with them, to record their attendance, and as well to keep their membership up to date. So again, a couple of those key features of the app, which we're going to go through here. We have those interests, which again are really helpful to just see what your students want to do and how you can plan for some of those interests throughout the next term. The goal setting activity is something that we have that really helps out for students to talk a little bit more in depth about what they want to get involved in, how they want to do that. Awareness, you have push notification capability with this app, so you can send as many of those as you would like, get analytics on that. You can also send it to different hyperlinks. So we'll see a lot of collaboration across campus with different things in different times of the semester. For example, health promotion and wellness, or maybe CAPS as a stressful time like finals may be coming up. And then holistic data, again, really just focused here on making sure that more students know about these opportunities, can find them, discover them, go to events, and inevitably join organizations, find that sense of belonging. So we're going to go over here to the demo. And again, this is completely white labeled, so it's a really great opportunity to extend your brand of what you're doing with your Engage instance. You'll see this red here, that's the primary color. If I say red, that's what I mean, but it's a whole, is it black or is it gold situation with some people not seeing as red. And then you get to name the app as well. So again, we can talk a little bit with our early adopters today, but we've seen different institutions add a plus to their Engage instance name. So their students still can see what that app is and have that recognition. They're going to log in, and this has the capability of using your single sign-on that you already set up. So we know a lot of IT offices are backed up right now. This gives you the ability to set that up without using IT resources. One of the things we learned pretty early on is because there's a social mobile component to this, students have different expectations in terms of the UI UX. And one of those is that they really want autonomy over that profile photo. So this is a great opportunity, again, for those students to express themselves in the app. We see a lot of vulnerability, and that's really because those students have the autonomy over this information. They can be more transparent with it as well. We ask when they're planning on graduating, and this is really important to meet each individual learner, depending on what their goals are. So we've seen adult and transfer students use this that may not be on a timeline of a 4-year graduation. Likewise, if students are trying to graduate early, this is a really great opportunity for them to say that, and then to align some of those goals with those intentions. Again, we have the interest page, and this is a great opportunity, completely customizable for you to figure out what your students want to do. It also gives you the opportunity to decide what you're going to call these different activities. So a lot of different states are going through different regulations and renaming right now. This is a wonderful opportunity for your students to recognize those new names that you might be using. We then have some high impact practices. So in this field, basically you can list anything when it comes to research or study abroad, and really just figure out what your students might want to do, and then to provide that information to different offices on campus. Again, strengthening some of those partnerships and creating that culture of engage. And then again, because following is unique to the app, we really want to highlight that. A great example is student government, where maybe you want all of your students to be following that opportunity, but maybe they're not all going to join, they're not all going to go to a meeting. And likewise, with different offices that you might have in Engage, we can either have them automatically followed, or we can have this page here where you can decide what those things are that you want to promote to your students. Next, we have a quick user pledge here, which is helpful just with the terms and conditions, also completely customizable. And then we're in the app. So we're following Shreya's experience here. She is re-sharing the art club, and this is the feed that we were talking about before. So students can repost, comment, and like any of those posts. They can see how many people have actually seen those posts as well, which can be helpful, especially for accounts that may be comparing this to traditional social media. One example there is Campus Rec. So again, those partnerships on campus, maybe they have different events that are going on at different times. They can promote those in the feed and make sure that more students are going to them in a timely manner. Likewise, for your student organizations, this is a great opportunity for them to promote in a way that's going to get out in front of students. And unlike social media, where it's only going to go to the people who are already in the organization and the people who are connected to those people, this application is really helpful for them to discover, again, these things, regardless of the connections that they're coming in with. Likewise, different offices have a great opportunity here for accessibility to different scholarships and resources that might be going on. So again, getting more of those partnerships involved here and giving them a space to market towards students. And then individual students as well as academic units, again, really great opportunity for them to just have this page. You're not worried about parents, you're not worried about alumni. It's really just the current students. And again, that transparency because it is connected to their account. Next, we're going to go over to the event scan. So this works with the ECIA app that Anthology Engage has, the event check-ins. This is going to bring up their individual QR code that they can check into events. We're constantly iterating, and we actually just did that this past week. We're now, early adopters may or may not have checked this yet. It is actually showing up on their top browsers. So that was some feedback that they gave us. It's now just one click away, and they'll stay logged into the app, providing your students an easier way to record that attendance when they go to events. We then have the Discover page, and this is really helpful for students to find different opportunities if they know what they're looking for. For example, to go to an organization, this will have the same filters as your Engage instance. So students may click into Women in STEM, follow or join that organization, see all the information that, again, will come in Engage and still stored in Engage as the source of truth. And something like privacy of those members, if they want to be a private member, they have the opportunity to do that here as well. We then have group chats. This has been incredibly helpful over the last year for students to just have a place to be vulnerable, whether it's adult learners that are saying, hey, I'm anxious about coming back to campus, students sharing that they may have a food insecurity and they're looking for events with free food. And even as recently as this week, it really is a place where students can say, hey, I'm trying to connect. Maybe I'm a global student or an online learner and really want to find somebody to have a study group with. It is again, safer place because it's only students, faculty, and staff that are in here. And you can really set those up for students to connect in a way that is not, Discord or GroupMe, where you're not necessarily in control of what's going on. We then have events. Again, the same filters that you would have in your Engage instance will automatically show up here. Students can add those to their Google or Outlook calendar, as well as RSVP directly to those events. And then we have the profile, where again, your students can express themselves. As we're starting to use this a little bit more for orientation, this is a great opportunity for orientation leaders to put their membership, internships, study abroad and research, and again, for those incoming students to connect with them and have more of a professional setting where they can see some of those things. It's not regular social media, but they can say, I'm trying to study abroad as well. Shreya, can you tell me about that? Or maybe that they're trying to join a club and see that Shreya is also a organization leader in addition to being an orientation leader. And then lastly, we won't go through all these questions today. Happy to set up a demo if anybody's interested, but we do have this goal setting activity here where we'll go in a little bit more depth. We want that sign up to be really quick for your students to log in. But we will ask more things like what kind of events they want to go to. So maybe, 70% of your students are interested in civic engagement, but only 20% of them want to go to a civic engagement event this year. Kind of understandable with the current environment. That's an opportunity maybe to identify that you want to have more online asynchronous webinars when it comes to that civic engagement. We then ask if they're interested in joining a new student org. And I'll just give one example here of the questions that we ask throughout this with other high impact practices, but what size organization are they actually looking to join? Apparently the introverts do not want to go to the involvement fair with a bunch of org leaders jumping up and down trying to get them involved. They also don't want to walk into really large rooms. So this is a great opportunity for them to find a more intimate environment. And likewise for your extroverts to say, hey, I'm looking for a large organization. This also incentivizes your student org leaders to keep those rosters up to date and making sure that they're recruiting the students that are looking for that environment. So if everybody wants to come on stage, we're going to start off and have everybody introduce themselves. So if you could give a little bit of background of you, your institution, your role, and a brief overview of your career experience, as well as your experience so far using Navengage, that would be greatly appreciated. And Adrian, if we can start with you, we're ready to go.
Hi, everyone. My name is Adrian Harris. I'm the Associate Director in Student Programs Leadership and Orientation at Roger Williams University in Bristol, Rhode Island. I have been at my university for nearly 20 years, majority of that working with Campus Labs, Anthology, all the iterations that it has been. But we've really been excited to adopt Navengage this past year, and I'm excited to show you more about my experience as we move on with this.
Cynthia, do you want to go next?
Yes, hi. Thank you so much. Cynthia Lambert, I use she, her pronouns, and I am the Director of Educational Communications for our Student Affairs Division here at Cal Poly. I am a longtime Mustang. I studied journalism at Cal Poly. I've worked here on campus for about 7 years. Prior to that, I was a reporter. And I've been with our Student Affairs Division for about a year, which is when we launched what we call our Cal Poly Now app using Navengage to the students last fall. Thank you.
And then Mark, please.
Thanks, Andrew. Hey, everybody. My name is Mark Manning, hailing from the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. I've actually been here for quite a while as either a student or a grad student, and now professional staff for the last 4 or 5 years. My career has been all over the place. I've done a little teaching. I've done academic affairs side of house things. I've done student affairs where I've been for the past 3 years now. And yeah, happy to be here today.
And last but not least, Dr. M.K. Tyler.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. M.K. Tyler. I'm the Director of Student Leadership and Involvement here at the University of Memphis. I also oversee Parent and Family Services as of July 1, which has been very fun to learn about. I have been at the University of Memphis for a little over 7 years. I was fortunate enough to also get my doctorate at the University of Memphis, where I looked at how students use social media and technology to connect with their peers, specifically looking at Gen Z. We have had the app since August 8th, and we've been very excited about all of it. And so looking forward to talking to you today.
Thanks, everybody. And want to remind everyone again, please feel free to use the chat for any of those questions that may come up throughout the presentation. We're going to kick that over to any of the questions that you have here in a couple minutes after we get through a few of these. First question being, would love to know about some of the pain points that you had on campus, and specifically how that related to some of your decision making as it went in to get the Navengage app. And then if we could actually start with Mark this time, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I think the whole reason I was super jazzed about the app in the first place was just like trying to meet the students where they're at. I think this is not a unique issue to Charlotte's campus, but there's a lot of email fatigue going on around here. Students are signed up for maybe 10 plus listservs by the time they hit campus, right? And it might be hard for them to navigate what's pertinent to their experience, right? What's going to, give them the biggest return on investment with their limited time that they have, right? Because our students don't necessarily always have the most free time, and finding those, like you said, high impact practices, programs, experiences that really influence their journey in a positive way is something that I wanted to make it easier for those students to get connected to. So, I think first off, having a sort of secured social media style feed platform where folks could feel comfortable to speak with other, students, and knowing that this is a safe place and this is only other students, faculty, and staff was a big benefit. And I think, again, just trying to meet the students where they're at and put something in their hands that they're already using, right? We're all connected to our phones nowadays, and if we can't get them through email, maybe we can get them through an app, and it's been successful. So
it was interesting last week, just hearing more and more students aren't even like using a laptop and somehow doing all of their assignments on their phone. So can definitely reiterate hearing a lot about that. Adrian, do you want to go next?
Sure. Our students, we use the Cork app prior to moving over to Navengage. And the biggest piece our students did not enjoy about the Cork app was that it was pretty much one-way content being pushed to them. They were missing the opportunity to engage and, create their own little entity in social media without having to follow like 1,001 things. So we really appreciated that Navengage, all the events just automatically fed over from HawkLink, and students were able to push their event back into the community feed, and they can comment on it. Like last year, this event did such and such, and it was such a great time. You don't want to miss it. Or just even posting something about them being at the event, like here's a photo. So that was one of the pieces that our students got really, really excited about when I started to share about this app, even before we had signed on. They're like, yes, that's what we want. And then the other piece is the ability to chat with one another, that they can make their own groups. Yes, there are a lot that I can create already for students to engage, whether it be through transfer students or all of our commuter students, classes, whatever it may be. But students can just create a chat on their own for this club and the membership within this club who are all interested in wanting to do this one thing. So the ability for them just to easily reach out to one another and find resources that are all inclusive to Roger Williams, that was one of our big selling pieces for wanting to really get onto this.
And Cynthia, can you go next?
Yeah. So we launched our Cal Poly Now website about 3 years ago through Anthology Engage. And so that is in student affairs, kind of our one-stop shop for all events, organizations, clubs on campus. And I think, unlike many or maybe all of the other folks here today, our website and our app is just within our student affairs division. So it includes all of our events and clubs, but we are hoping to expand it to other divisions at the university. So we did a lot of work when we launched Cal Poly Now to train staff and student leaders on how they could manage their organizations and clubs within that platform. But there was kind of a lack of awareness, or we've been working over the past few years to really increase knowledge of the Cal Poly Now website with our students. And from the start, they were asking for an app. They didn't want to have to go to the website and search through that to find clubs and events and organizations. And so we were super excited to partner with Navengage because y'all were creating an app for something we had in place through Anthology. And so that just worked really well. Thanks, Andrew.
Okay.
A big thing with, I think, everyone that is watching this or will be watching it, coming off of COVID, we just saw a disengagement of students across the board, lots of head nods, and trying to find students, specifically Gen Z, their whole life is in the vertical. It's not on a horizontal screen anymore. And I think that that was a hard thing for some people to wrap our heads around. And with the Quark app, like Adrian said, it was very much a one-way communication. And so it was hard to make the decision of like, do we push this app or do we just send them to a really like beautiful web-based version of a website or a mobile-based version of a website? And so we never even pushed the original just Quark app because it did all the same things on the web version. And but students always said like, can we have an app for our event pass? How do we do this? How can we build this up? And so being able to see the Navengage app and say, okay, I think this is something that will really help, has been very fun to launch and watch students thrive within it. It also allowed students to make connections that I don't know if they would have been able to find, and I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But the social part of it was really important to us because it allowed students to make those more organic connections in a space where they might not have to be in front of 30 people or in a room with a lot of people. And they felt more comfortable introducing themselves and being a little bit more authentic in those spaces.
It's actually a really good segue to the next question. So thinking about the implementation of the app, can you talk a little bit about what some of those challenges and successes were, specifically with getting students on the app and that process of really just kind of building momentum? And if we could start with Adrian this time. If I'm reading that correct. Yep.
Sure. So we actually implemented in January. And my thought process was, let me get the student leaders on the app through our spring retreat that we do with all of them, get them introduced, because I told them about it in the fall and they were super excited and they were bugging me all fall semester, like, when's it coming? I'm like, I promise you it's coming. So we got them on, and what I really appreciated was the implementation process was so simple. It was just a series of thoughtful questions with Andrew and Nicole about what is it we wanted to really achieve with the app, what goals did I have, and here are some basic things that we need to set up. And then from there, when it launches, it's really a matter of the students being engaged on the app is what makes the app. Unlike launching Anthology Engage, if you had to go through that process where it's like a 3-month struggle at times because there's so many components, but the app just integrating with Engage is just so simple and easy and smooth and thoughtful. The students, they immediately grabbed onto it because it was just so intuitive that they were already like posting, like trying to figuring things out. And they're asking questions like, I don't know, just try it. And if not, I can ask and I'll get you an answer. And they did. And they loved that piece. Getting more students on, I focused on our opening large events and really promoting download the app. And during this event, watch the feed, because I scheduled posts so that they could actually gain more prizes during the event if they brought me whatever it was that I had said in the app to do. And students loved that. And we were playing bingo. And so they're like, I get more bingo cards for free. And yeah, the students went crazy for it. But they could see how they're like, oh, this is how we can engage. This is how I can just throw a photo up here at this event. Here's what I just won. Why aren't you here? And students have just really latched onto it. And if they have an issue, they know they can bring it to me, or they can actually reach directly out to support, and they're going to get into that. Or get a response, I should say.
I remember that Saturday when you were doing the student org leader implementation. It was just awesome to see that kind of interaction and the memes, and that's exactly kind of what we're looking for in those launches. That was a really great approach to it, and really excited to talk to you a little bit more coming up about that spring launch. I know we got a lot of questions about that as well. Cynthia.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate this group and just hearing what everybody's done, because it has helped me develop different marketing and communications ideas on how to launch this across campus. So when we launched last fall, and I can talk a little bit more about this later, but we launched and really targeted our incoming students and trying to get more engagement among students who are going to be here for a few years, while also making sure continuing students know about it. But we also did a lot of work last summer, fall, some training with our orientation leaders and other staff and student leaders to make sure they understood the difference between what they can do on the app and what they need to do on the Cal Poly Now website, the desktop platform. So they still needed to use the desktop platform to create events, for example, and then those events seamlessly integrate into the app. So it's just, we created some internal training guides on how folks can navigate all the back end and what they can do so that they know, okay, your event is showing up, now go ahead and promote it in the feed. And we created a push notification form so that folks could draw more attention to their events and things. So we're slowly, I think, developing more strategies for engagement, but there's always more work to do. The group chats have been a great success for us since Engage doesn't have a chat feature. Every group chat by a student was an engagement in the app that we would not otherwise have had. And we did set up some chats to start, but then we tried to let it go just organically so students could set up their own groups and move forward with that. We have been trying to encourage groups like our orientation leaders and resident advisors to use it instead of things like GroupMe. And we're still working on that adoption process. I will say that, yeah, anytime we've had a little issue or a question, anything we brought to the Navengage team's attention has been fixed and addressed very quickly. So we appreciate that. And the event class is also a huge plus for us. We need to do more tracking and we need to get students more familiar with that. So that's a goal this upcoming year.
Thank you for the shout out. Also shout out to Nicole, who runs our customer success and is always slacking back and forth. That kind of collaboration, like you mentioned, is why we like to have that Slack channel set up, and just so everybody can share those ideas. So I know everybody has benefited a lot from that throughout the last year. Send it over to Mark.
I kind of want to riff off the collaboration aspect there because, MK and I have been as thick as thieves, I guess you could say, over this past year. And that really helped with the implementation process. Just having a buddy, somebody to be like, MK, I feel stupid right now. I should know the answer to this question, where this button lives, where this thing is, what do I need to do? And so it was great to have somebody to bounce off. And that's everybody in the group. I feel like I've learned genuinely so much from everyone in this early adopter group. But as far as like the implementation process goes, we had a kind of weird timeline, but we still wanted to hit the ground running. And, shout out to y'all's like successful start workbook. I think that was huge for us because, I looked real smart when I went and I said, I've got 8 weeks of challenges, y'all. We're going to put those in the app. And they didn't have to know that they came from y'all, and they were successful, right? And we just kind of, hit everything on the board, right? Like, let's do a giveaway for, to let folks know that you can comment on posts. Let's do a giveaway for like referrals. Let's do group chat giveaways. Let's do, we really tried to hit every single feature of the app and feature that in a giveaway to kind of let folks know. So that was really successful for implementation, I think. And we had, I'd say no real major challenges. We had a couple road bumps, but I feel like I was either on the phone with you, Dan, or Nicole, and we iron out all these issues like super quickly and then, keep moving on. Just thinking of successes, at least with implementation, we hit our user goal well in advance, well before I thought we would. And, we had a huge, one of our biggest events that we have here at Charlotte is our Haunted Union, where we take over the entire Haunted Union for the evening. And I was determined. I got little glow-in-the-dark wristbands that said Navengage Plus and Haunted Union, 2023. And I was just down there with the students with a megaphone, and I was like, hey, y'all heard about this app? If you show me you got it, you get a band. And they loved it. And you know what I mean? And that was huge. We saw our biggest growth of users, I think, in a single night. I think we got like 600 or 700 users from one event. It was absolutely insane. So just having like that support to try crazy initiatives like that, and knowing that if something did go wrong, I had y'all, in the back pocket. And, I think as far as the first year goes, we really blew it out of the water. I was pretty happy.
And I'm excited to talk about your momentum this summer too in orientation things. But it's been awesome to just be along that. And the expansion is awesome. Kind of going to year 2 too. MK.
Hello again. Our implementation, I have one of those personalities of how hard can it be. And so I said we need to launch this before school starts. And so we launched Tiger Zone Mobile early August last year. So we're coming right up on a year. And we were in a kind of unique place because all of our orientations were done. And so we didn't have the opportunity to post or tell people to download an app. We were able to tell them it was coming, but they weren't able to find it on the App Store. So we really combined our implementation with our weeks of welcome. And that was the only place students could see the schedule, was either if they were on Tiger Zone on their desktop or if they were on Tiger Zone Mobile. So we didn't do a web-based schedule anywhere else. We just told students to log in and see what was going on and click that events tab. And so that helped us get a lot of students into that app really quickly. We took the approach of get all of some general students into the app first, and then invite those organization leaders to join secondly. But part of that was just because of the timeline, right? All of our new students were coming. They needed a schedule. We put the app in the schedule, or the schedule in the app. It really allowed the students to drive what it looked like to be in the app. There wasn't a lot of content. The Navengage team and I went back and forth. I was like, do I post a lot of content? What does it look like if the student logs in and they see 10 posts from different departments that are, here at the counseling center, here's student leadership involvement, here's multicultural affairs, all great resources, but are they going to think they're looking at the university website? So we took a risk. And we had 2 posts, welcome to the app and tell us what you're looking forward to in the fall and introduce yourself. And we had some really brave students start to introduce themselves, and it took off like wildfire within the group chats as well as on the feed, where students were sharing their small businesses or what they're most looking forward to, or making some friends. And we've seen that continue on throughout this past year, and I'm looking forward to year 2 as well.
We'll never forget the scrunchy post that all of a sudden became hundreds of students making introductions. We're going to switch over to some individual questions. And Adrian, we're going to start with you. Would love to hear a little bit more about your launch. You were the first one to test out the spring launch. I've definitely talked to a lot of institutions that are looking at more of like a softer launch to get that set up and then kind of roll into something larger that might be in a fall semester. Can you talk a little bit about that experience with having your students adopt it in the spring?
Sure. Yes, we started in January. And as I mentioned before, my focus was on the student leaders because I needed to get them comfortable in the app, because they're the ones that are the promoters around campus of like, this is where you can find this. This is where you can find this. Here's who you need to talk to. And if they are the ones who are really endorsing this app, understanding how it all functions and throws back to me like, this is what I don't like about it, then that's how we can make change happen before we announce it to like the entire campus population, which was really great because they actually liked it the way it was. So they were all about it. And as I shared, they got right into creating posts on the feed, finding their events and reposting them, throwing out memes and YouTube clips. So they really enjoyed all the functionality of just promoting events as well as being, just silly and, creating community within the Roger setting for not only themselves, but also for the new students. And so when they got on it and they were telling people on their residence hall floors to, download the app, this is where you can find this is where you can find that. And so over the course of the spring semester, through a series of events that they hosted, our department hosted, we were really gaining momentum of getting students on. My goal was to get about 700 or so students on the app before the semester was over. And I think I was closer to like 900, maybe I was around like 800 or 900, I think. And so I was like, woo, that's exciting. And then the big launch was for orientation, because we do a June orientation. And so we built time into the schedule for all of the students to download the app, get familiar with it, as well as utilize the event pass during the social if they wanted their ice cream novelty. So that's how we also kind of kept track of things that way. And they could begin to use the app and create their own groups. Some of the orientation advisors, they made group chats within the app. So they were really starting to get the students engaged on there. So I'm excited that we have a good core of first-year students who are engaging on the app, and I'm still seeing random posts this week from first-year students. And they're just kind of like, yeah, this is how we communicate. Now, I'm not under any delusion that everybody's going to be on this app, before the year is over, because seniors and juniors, they're going to do what they want to do. But I am more focused my energies on the freshmen and sophomores and a number of juniors, because they're student leaders. And after probably the end of next year, I know that at least 75% of the university will be on this app, because I'm also bringing the departments in and having trainings with them. They're excited about the app and everything that it can do as well.
That campus collaboration is one of the really exciting things, to see somebody light up and kind of make the connection of oh, this is how we can speak to that broader student audience that we're trying to get to. I know this is a little improv-y because we just had this meeting earlier today. We usually have check-ins with everybody here. But Adrian, I would love if you would feel comfortable sharing about the idea that you had with your student org leaders and kind of incentivizing them to get that content out.
Sure. So I host trainings with all of the club officers, and we do a number of club bonuses that can be anything throughout the year for money to go into their fundraising account. And one of the ideas that I've recently had was, for them to create at least 2 posts per week for at least 10 out of the 15 weeks of the semester. So that way they're, as officers, getting comfortable on the app and getting their content out there, and really producing stuff for students to see, and possibly draw in new students to their clubs as well and their events. And by doing that, it also just helps them just not thinking about their club, but also as an individual, that I can post stuff about this as well. To just really just always creating content on that community feed.
I'm very excited for that one, as you saw with my facial expression this morning. Good segue there. Mark, you're doing some really interesting things from an assessment standpoint, and have kind of had that approach, as you mentioned, kind of going into the app. Can you talk a little bit about how that approach has kind of played out and how that's helped with some of the initiatives that you have at Charlotte?
Yeah, definitely. So, here at Charlotte, our Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, Dr. Bailey, would say that we operate on a culture of evidence, right? So that is to say that the decisions we make, the best practices, anything that we do should be in the interest of the student, and it should be based on empirical evidence, right? We should have, whether that's qualitative, quantitative, whatever that data, whatever form that data comes in, that's what should be informing our decisions. And so, when I'm looking at the holistic student experience, right, it's not just in the classroom. A lot of times it's equally as important outside of the classroom, right? To build those extracurriculars, those transferable skills, find your community, within the community of Charlotte. And so that really aligns with the way that I think about everything too. Why make any decision, even though it wasn't too terribly long ago that I was a student, it's still been a minute. I don't necessarily have the exact perfect read on what every student is thinking, what every student is feeling, what every student's journey is, right? So the more that we can get good quality data, which, the data we're getting from the app is a lot of self-reporting, right? Students, they have no obligation to A, download the app, or B, click on anything in the sign-up options, right? A lot of things you can cruise right past if there's nothing that interests you. And so we know that when these students are giving us that information, they are taking that time to say, hey, this is something I'm interested in. I want this opportunity. I want this experience. So just to speak of the sign-up data, where I could spend the entire webinar talking about the data because this is really what gets me going. But the sign-up data alone, you see people, they're like, why should we use the app? And then I'm like, what if I told you I had a curated list of a name of students who, hundreds and thousands in a lot of cases of students who said they're interested in your programs, and it's like a light bulb clicks on, and our campus partners are like, yep, I need to be in there. And that's something I've been doing all summer is we're revisiting our sign-up options, and we're like, are we capturing the data in the best way for your uses, right? Do we need to phrase things a different way, or different perspectives from students might, they might see financial wellness, but they might view that differently than finance workshops, right? So what's the best way to sort of put that information in front of them, and then conversely get that back on our end so that we can say, this is what students are interested in. And also this is what they're actually attending, through things like the sort of integrated event pass and the way that we can track attendance with the app, right? And I think all of that is, again, just building to strengthen this culture of evidence here at Charlotte, and let that guide our decisions, and not like a feeling or an impulse, but rather hard data that says, no, this is what students need and this is what they get the most out of it from. So I'll stop there, because if I don't, I feel like I'll just keep going. So
that was awesome. Similarly, MK, you did a lot of your research in social media and students' current approach to that, especially with Gen Z, and have also really had a big focus on that social feed. And again, going back to some of those events very early on, and how that kind of culminated in a snowball effect, I would say. Can you talk a little bit about your research and how that has carried over to the usage that you've seen?
Certainly. The big thing, and I think, we all grew up and we were told, don't meet strangers on the internet, don't give out your real name, don't tell people about yourselves. And now we're using the internet to call cars to our house to take us to the airport and make best friends. And so the way that technology has moved so quickly, I think requires us as student affairs professionals, or professionals in any field, to keep up. And our students, Gen Z students, have always been online. They've never been, they never had to learn what the internet was, because they've always had the internet. They've never really had to learn what social media was, because they always had that too. And finding a way to say, okay, well, we want to make something that looks similar, that you feel comfortable with, that's rooted in our university, has there was no way to do that before. And so that feed, and allowing students to connect in that way, has allowed our students to make some pretty genuine connections. And, I can't track down every student and say, you asked if someone would go to the football game with you. Did you go to the football game with the person? And are they your new best friend? At some point, there's an end to where the data and the stories that we can see stops. But I've seen two really beautiful things happen in the app. Two stories that I want to tell is, we had one student, we have an adult and parenting student group chat that we had, and we had one student post in there, hey, I'm a new mom and I took some time off from school and I'm really nervous. I don't know if I can go back. And there was another mom in there, and she said, hey, I took several years off and I'm so excited that you're coming and you can do this and connect with me. And I wish you the best of luck. It was right before school started last year. And that's the thing. I don't know if they ever connected on campus, but I think, sometimes just having the courage to walk through the door because, someone else's experience was similar to yours is really beautiful. And then last night we had a student post talking about how she has a illness, and it's hard for her to have a lot of classes online, but she's looking for in person. So she's looking for some virtual study partners. And immediately someone said, hey, I want to connect Here's my social media contact information. Let's connect. And the vulnerability, I think, of Memphis students, and I think of Gen Z as a whole, is something that's really beautiful. And being able to provide spaces for them to do that and connect in a safe way where you're able to say, okay, for sure know this person goes to school at Memphis, or I for sure know this person goes to school where you work, has been incredibly helpful for us. And I'm looking forward to seeing how those students continue those conversations and continue those connections through our weeks of welcome here coming up in August.
Those use cases are like a jolt of energy for everybody on our team of just, I think the technology creating some of those accessible spaces to say something that vulnerable and then to see positivity is just very unique with like kind of how the tool is used in contrast to social media where you might see more of that negativity. So yeah, I'm still kind of buzzing off of the recent example there. And Cynthia, and again, like kind of coming from a communications background, being in charge of especially that component with the app, incredible immediate numbers with your first year students. I'm sure a lot of people that are watching this are questioning, like, how do we kind of get that adoption? Would love if you could speak to that a little bit, as well as how you then started doing some of those weekly giveaways, partnering with campus and taking those thousands of users that you were able to get on the app and helping them to get involved in some of those offices.
Yeah, absolutely. Excited about how things went last fall. So we launched the app at the same time that we launched a program for new students also within Cal Poly Now, which we call Paths. It's kind of like a pilot and within a pilot. But the Paths program, which we are revamping a little bit this year based on how last year went, is really designed for new students to help create connections when they get to campus, to find clubs, events, friends, connect them to campus and the community. So it brings students into the app. We integrated Paths with Cal Poly Now, and they complete several steps. And then at the end of it, they get a gift. We did some Paths branded beanies that we're going to give away again this winter. So we're revising that program to get more engagement, setting like a specific timeline for it. But what we did last year is we asked new students before they even moved in, downloading the Cal Poly Now app was part of that program. We worked with our admissions department, which communicates to new students before they get here. And we sent targeted emails to all of our new first year and transfer students. So that was about 6,100 students last year. And we also did some boothing at club fairs when they got here. We did a download for a donut kind of thing, and we went through hundreds of donuts in no time. Should have bought more donuts. But new students tend to follow directions, right? So we had thousands download the app, and we made it part of this program. So it was one of the steps. Go on, learn about Cal Poly Now, learn about Paths, and download the app. But then we needed to continue to maintain that engagement while we try to grow followers. For me, that's been kind of a key thing that we need to continue to work on and involve our staff in and students more fully. So again, this group has been so helpful. So MK had this wonderful idea that was somehow able to find departments to sponsor entire weeks of giveaways on the app, right? So you were doing daily giveaways. I'd love to know if that's continuing. I decided life goals, to not go that big, but to try to do a weekly giveaway. And we're on the quarter system here at Cal Poly. So we did 10 weeks of giveaways last winter and spring in partnership with our departments. So put it out to we have about 30 departments in student affairs. So I got a good number to participate. What do you have that you could give away? And at the same time, promote something about your program. So we tried to tie it to different times of the year. Career fair is coming up. Tell us what job or internship you have planned for the upcoming summer, that kind of thing. And then we promoted the giveaways through a new newsletter that we started. We're calling the Cal Poly Now letter. We promoted it on social media and our student portal. And it was really interesting. I think overall it was successful, and it created that weekly engagement on the app. It kind of depended, I think, week by week on what we were giving away. Some were more popular than others, and that was interesting to see. And our engagement, I think, it fell a little bit in the spring just because it's such a busy quarter for us and students are so focused on so many different things. But winter especially, I think, was really great. And we're already promoting the app now to incoming students in our admissions newsletter, which goes out every other week. So I think we're continuing to see some new students, incoming students, already download the app. We just need to keep engaging them once they're here.
This is a good segue to a little bit more of a collaborative wrap up to the meeting. Just want to encourage everybody again in the chat that you would see on the right side of your screen. You just go over to Q&A and you can ask anything. We're happy to start responding to some of those questions, both with our team that can respond there, but also to talk about them. I think that's a good handoff. MK, could you talk a little bit about how you were able to get some of those offices to sponsor those weeks? I know you used a tool as well that I was actually trying to promote to somebody this week, but I forgot the name of it. And if you could talk a little bit about the unexpected beneficiaries of that. I know athletics is one of those. Would love to hear about any of those success stories as well.
Yeah, so I am very fortunate. Like I said, I've been at the University of Memphis for 7 years, and universities, as business as they feel sometimes, they are still a place of relationships. And so I was able to leverage some personal relationships to say, like, hey, can y'all please just do me a solid and let me promote your departments on my app and help kind of push this along. And so my first few organizations and departments that helped were offices that had already worked really closely with my office or my programs in the past. But it's easy to show this is what you're getting for such little work. And so athletics, they have some really good young marketing people. And I said, what if we just like send out push notifications? We'll just like see what happens. It's no risk. It can only sell more football tickets, or it can only have students claim more tickets. And every time we did a football ticket, make sure you get your football ticket. And they clicked on the push notification and it took them to the website. Athletics was saying it looked really weird because there was just a spike in their data. And they had never seen that before because it was a little bit more stable with email and notifications and different things like that. And so being able to say, hey, look, this is working for athletics. Maybe we could do this for the career fair. Maybe we could do push notifications for registering for class or paying your bills or doing things with direct deposit signups. So really figuring out how we can make things a lot easier for other departments without them having to do a lot of work. Another thing that we've seen that's been really helpful is that we have started training our offices, our departments on how to schedule their posts. And so if you can literally sit down and think about this for 2 hours in August and then not have to really think about it again until December for January. So that feature to schedule posts has allowed them to really kind of set it and forget it and create a cadence that they are not always on there, but they can log in and see what's going on. So our campus partners, they're wonderful. They also were mostly already on Tiger Zone. So I wasn't having to train them how to use Engage and Navengage at the same time. But part of that is just a byproduct that we've had Engage for over a decade here on campus in one way or another. So they were pretty familiar with it, but always bringing on more colleges, always bringing on more departments. And it's kind of once you get those first few, you call them those favors, like Mark said, you can convince other people to the worth and the value of it as well.
Love the partnership and just building some of those. I know we have 4 or 5 campuses that are actually going through implementation right now. They're joining us today. So I'm gonna ask this on their behalf. Going into, for 3 of you, the second year, Adrian going into the first fall semester, I'm curious, what are the things that you learned that you wish you would have known when you were launching the app? And this is for anybody.
I'll start. I love data. I love checking on things. I love like new projects, and I'll go all in on those. And one thing I had to learn very quickly was like what cadence I was going to be checking the app. Because the way that you can set it up as an admin, you can be connected with everyone. You get push notifications all the time. But you have to also say, like, I have 100% of another job as well. Your whole job will not be this app. But figuring out how what that cadence looks like. So when I come in every morning, I just kind of scroll through the feed on my desktop. I make sure everything looks good. I answer some questions if I don't think students are able to answer them for each other. And then kind of keep it moving. But at the beginning, I was on that app all day, every day, making sure people were connected, like and post, telling them, hey, and I think it provided a lot of value. But you also have to think about yourself as a professional and as a person, and being able to set up what that's going to look like for you in that first year is a really helpful thing. And only you can do that. We can't tell you what that's supposed to look like for you and for your role, but as an administrator, you need to know what that looks like for your mental health as well.
There was a stretch there. I was also looking at every single direct message for a little while, and there were like 70 per night. So definitely can reiterate the importance of that. We also got a question after Anthology Together presentation last week about the content on that. And it's good to know, like, you've gotten to a place with that as well, where you feel comfortable not needing to look at that all the time, but can just kind of go through in the morning because your students know like that approach to the app and those expectations being set. Mark, you want to go next?
Yeah, I was just going to say, maybe not something I would have known, but something I wish we would have done, which, was no fault to anything. Timelines are the way they are sometimes, but just like the power of partnering with your NSO department, your new student orientation department, whatever form that exists. I know it's, different on the org chart for a lot of our universities, but I can't overstate, like, we've almost doubled our users during the summer this year in the app, which is just blowing my mind because, for most college campuses, summers aren't, some big party where students are super engaged and looking for opportunities, but they're in the app and they're excited to be there. I had a giveaway post for one of our interest sessions, and students keep coming up and they're like, is the giveaway still live? And it wasn't, but I kept giving away stuff because I forgot to edit the post. And, so they're checking it. Like, even in the summer, they're looking, they're like, we need to know what's going on. And so that was just, big shout out to NSO. If anybody from NSO is on this right now from Charlotte watching, like, I appreciate y'all more than you know. But additionally, like, the effects of that, right? Like, we can see numbers go up. That's cool. Numbers are great. Andrew, that's always been my thing. Like, I like a number, but like, I'm more interested, like, what's the experience, right? And I am not exaggerating when I tell you last year, like, before we had the app, I'm tabling during the summer. I'm asking students like, hey, do y'all know how to get connected on campus? Do you know how to find orgs? Do you know how to find events? And they don't. I tell them about Navengage. This summer, dude, I'm already there. I tell them, I'm like, y'all know how to get involved on campus? And they're like, yeah, we've got the app, Mark. We already know. And I'm like, okay, like, you know what I mean? It's in 1 year alone, like, we've begun to establish this culture of this is what you do, right? Like, it's something we throw around a lot here when we're talking about the app in meetings. Like, we're not going to suggest the app is something you could do. Like, no, this is what we do at Charlotte. We use this app to engage. We use it to connect, to find events, to find your community, right? So I like, genuinely, there's one thing like that you can go full send on, like, get in with that new student orientation or whatever form that looks like for y'all, because you will see the results almost immediately.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to add the one piece for me is, even if you can take one component and assign it to somebody else, is always helpful to feel as though you don't have to own everything. I have a grad student and they are in charge of our Challenge Accepted, which is our, like, 2 times a week. They'll do some random post of go find this table time, go visit this office, and, they can win points. And then at the end of the week or whatever, they can come claim a prize. But I let them own that. I don't have to be responsible.
I saw some questions in the chat. One said, are there any alternatives if orientation can't or won't buy in? I think, all of our universities are different, but Andrew and I talked about that. We presented last week at Anthology Together, and my best advice is, like, connect it to something. So whether it is homecoming, whether it is a big fall event, whether it's your spring start day, whether it's your not orientation fair, but maybe a student organization fair, something that you have a little bit more control over, where you can say it's this plus an app, or something to kind of just connect to. Learning communities are great, like Mark said. Housing is a great opportunity as well. Once students are in the app, you can force add them into group chat. So there's an opportunity where you could put everyone that lives in a certain residence hall in a group chat together. So it's really based off of your timeline, what it looks like for your campus, and how that can be successful for you. And Margaret, for your question of how early do you start connecting with incoming students, I think Mark and I have both started this semester or this summer with them coming to orientation. And so our orientation started in May. So that's when we started working with students, new students, but that might look different for Adrian and Cynthia. So I don't want to monopolize the time, but they can probably chime in on that as well.
Yeah, we started in June for this first wave beyond our January launch. So, I mean, and students are using it. I know it's slow over the summer, but they are using it.
And for us, we start later since we're on a quarter system. Our students come back for the second part of orientation in September. So that's really when we'll start using it more.
I know we're a little bit over time, and I want to be respectful of everybody's time today. I want to thank everybody again for being a part of the panel. And one last thought, Mark, also really excited about, I think one of the things that we want to really add to Anthology Engage users is to remember where to go. So when they're in that mindset of, everybody has a friend except for me, everybody found an organization except for me, knowing that they can go to the app in those times is one of the things that we take a lot of pride in, of just kind of adding that. If you don't feel the sense of community or belonging yet, you know where to go to kind of find that. And appreciate all of your work. I'm really excited for the upcoming semester and what you're going to do this year. And I encourage anybody, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out afterwards, and happy to answer those as well. But thanks so much. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you soon.